Flying Snakes, Poisoned Birds, and a Homicidal Golf Ball by Casual Geographic.
Happy Halloween, hope you're having a great day. Snakes can fly. Did you know that? This is a Southeast Asian Chrysopolia, but it's also called the flying snake. Flying snakes spend most of their time in the trees, and by pressing the ridges of their scales against the bark, they can actually climb straight up a tree even with no arms or legs.
I actually did know this. Out of my wealth of random information, I actually did know that this snake existed. I might not know the particulars of it, but I do know that it's able to coil around and go like vertically. And I think it doesn't fly, quote unquote, as much as it kind of leaps out and jumps at stuff, right?
Instead of climbing down, these snakes save energy by flying from tree to tree. Basically, by flattening its body, the snake's belly forms a concave surface, kind of like a frisbee. By turning itself into a living parachute, not only can these snakes easily move through the air, they can actually make turns mid-flight. And even though I low-key lied about them flying, these snakes can glide farther than animals like flying squirrels. In fact, a motivated snake can go for 330 feet.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? Flying squirrel is a little bit of a misnomer, right? A flying snake it yeets itself and it kind of just glides through the air, right? So, I mean, flying's not. I mean, it's. I'm arguing semantics at this point, right? Like, I get it. It totally makes sense, but it's more like, okay, but it's like flying squirrel. Like I said, a little bit of a misnomer.
For non-Americans, that's about 100 meters. For Americans that don't understand distance, that's about the length of a football field. But these snakes don't usually fly to catch bodies. In fact, most of the time, they're doing it to avoid other animals. Even though it is venomous, unless you're like a rat or something, it probably won't kill you. Don't be a snitch. It doesn't change the fact that somewhere in the world, you can actually look up and see a snake getting hang time right over your head. I want you to remember that tonight. This bird can end your life in one of the worst ways possible. This is a hooded pitowee, and it's the only poisonous bird in the world. Its feathers, skin, and even tissues contain a potent batrachotoxin that it steals from the beetles it eats. That same poison is the reason why this frog can murk 20,000 mice, pack up 10 people, and even though it could sleep on a quarter, this frog allegedly contains enough toxin to drop a full-grown elephant. And that's the same poison this toxic sweetie uses to defend itself.
So that's when we were talking about the rockfish, right? I mean, there's like this bird is built from an evolutionary standpoint to handle the poison, right? You know, we were talking about poisonous versus venomous, right? If it bites you and you're affected and your game ended, that's venomous, right? But if you bite it and your game ended, that's poisonous, right? So it's able to deal with those toxins. And that's why I was curious about the stonefish, because if it's got that powerful of a toxin in it and it's just kind of there, like what exactly deals with that? Because this is honestly a very common thing in nature, from what I understand. Certain predators of certain things, certain toxic, even venomous animals are able to utilize that toxin in their body. So it's very interesting that this bird is just actually just toxic bird. I kind of love it. Actual poison type from Pokemon. Because
its poison is a neurotoxin, it basically shuts down muscle by blocking the sodium channels of nerve cells. Meaning it would just get harder and harder for you to breathe until your lungs shut down.
Nice.
Eventually you'd become paralyzed, you'd lose consciousness, and your heart would stop. Not only can the poison turn you into past tense in only 10 minutes, the amount of poison it would take to turn your name into a hashtag weighs as much as 2 grains of salt. If you touch this bird with your lips, your entire mouth would go numb, and we know that because someone actually did it. But to be fair, this bird's never taken a human life, that we know of. But this tiny bird has the power to put you on the news, and I don't think nearly enough people talk about it. It's Halloween, so now—
I mean, that's one of those things that, like, it's not necessarily the bird's fault, right? That is one of those things where it's like, this is just, the bird is a natural predator of a poisonous frog, right? It is able to utilize that toxin in its anatomy, right, in its physiology. So it's not the bird's fault. I mean, sure, you can, well, yeah, someone goes out, someone doesn't know what this bird is and touches it. But to be fair, in all fairness, it does kind of have that bright coloration, especially that last one, right, where it's got the orange on it. Generally, if something is bright in nature, we're talking, oh god, what is it? It's the slug, the sea dragon, quote unquote, that people in TikTok like to pick up, poison dart frogs, general blue ring octopus, right? If you see something that is bright, vivid, that is a hey, don't touch me, which is why the stonefish is kind of a certified dick move.
Actually, I gotta ruin your day. This is your only chance to scroll. So way back when in Victorian England, people would try to remove tapeworms by first having the patient starve themselves for a couple of days. Then they would insert a cylinder with food into the digestive tract to lure the tapeworm, and then it would be pulled out through the mouth. Now the problem was that some of these tapeworms grew to 6 feet long, so allegedly there was a good number of patients that actually choked to death before it was completely out. But the worst part, back then a lot of women would purposely infect themselves with tapeworms, that way they could eat whatever they wanted without gaining weight.
I mean, we see that in modernity, right? Like we absolutely see this in modernity with the tapeworm diet. It's dumb. Like, definitely seek a physician if weight loss is a concern. You know, you're like, oh, well, I want to try something more holistic. I want to try something more. Okay, let's stop shy of using a parasite, okay? Let's not throw effectively hungry Las Plagas into your body, right? Like, you might be looking at, oh, well, this will cause weight loss. It causes extreme weight loss, but I mean, it has more detriment. It's a parasite, right? Parasitism versus symbiosis, right? Symbiosis is kind of, okay, cool, like the spider that uses the frog, right? The spider is kind of cool, kind of chilling, and then it has a little frog pet, right? And the frog, I think, lures prey to it, and it also protects the frog. There's a symbiotic relationship there. There's a mutual benefit. Parasitism is one entity just gets all the goods, right? I'm really struggling with words right now. I'm so sorry. One entity benefits, right? It is the sole benefactor in a situation where the other is not. So, for instance, talking about tapeworm, right? Sure, this tapeworm lives in your digestive tract, right? But like, it gets all the nutrients and stuff, and it ends up wreaking havoc on your body. And you don't even know. You don't know if this is going to interact with certain medications in a certain way. Maybe a certain medication will aggravate the tapeworm, make it flare up. You have no idea how that's going to interact with certain procedures. You have no idea if this is going to be a complication. Say you need to go in for, an appendix surgery, and you're like, oh, well, yeah, no, I do this with, I'm on the tapeworm diet. Okay. There's so much you have to consider. And I do not think a single licensed physician would actually recommend this, right? I think there's medical maggots and stuff, medical leeches, but that is outside of my pay grade. And two, that I'm sure has a very stringent process to even get to that point. Do not do this, okay? Do not. Listen to licensed physicians, especially if they tell you to not do this.
Very literal big mistake, because tapeworms can grow to 26 feet long and it can live inside the host body for 30 years.
Good God.
That's a whole mortgage, my guy. Also, tapeworms give birth more than any other animal, since they can have up to 1,000 segments called proglottids, and some species have up to 100,000 eggs in just one of them.
Wow.
Meaning some tapeworms can release nearly 1 million eggs in a 24-hour cycle.
Really?
And if you're infected with that tapeworm, that means you probably do too. According to health organizations, about 50 million people are infected right now, and unless you show symptoms, you might never know it's inside you. In fact, some tapeworms can suppress the immune system so that your body's built-in defenses don't attack it. But it also means some tapeworms could cause you to have less of an allergic reaction to certain things. So if you ever wake up one day and you can drink milk all of a sudden, you might want to get checked. You might just have a roommate living rent-free in your guts. Pause.
Woman nearly meets God.
I mean, yeah, it's such to me, it is such a dumb thing, right? I feel like I come across as a, what do you call it? An insufferable know-it-all. I come across as incredibly pretentious. I come across as, well, I know these things. I can do these things. It's like, I'm a dingus on the internet, okay? When it comes to parasites, we are, especially because of how they can interact with the immune system, some of them are just odd. Like he's saying, they can suppress the immune system. They can deal with allergies in a certain aspect. There's other parasites that just absolutely get around your immune system. Parasites are a massive, massive problem. And I can't recommend the tapeworm diet enough. I've habitually made fun of it.
Without even realizing it.
No.
I don't think y'all understand just how
those blue rings, right? Vivid, bright colors in nature.
lucky this woman is. Now, you definitely know that's a blue ring octopus. I'm sure you know it's one of the most venomous things on the planet. You might even know that one bite from it is toxic enough to put 26 men on milk cartons. There's a special thing about them that somehow makes them even worse. Because it's so small, if this octopus bites you, there's a good chance you're not gonna feel it.
No.
It's like a pinprick, and it's why most people don't even realize the countdown's already started. Because you don't feel it, but when this homicidal golf ball bites you, it injects you with a neurotoxin about 10,000 times more powerful than cyanide. And once that venom's in your body, it can shut down muscles, causing difficulty breathing and eventually paralysis. Meaning you would just suffocate to death. Which is why this octopus can kill you in as little as 30 minutes. Which is bad enough, but if you don't know you've been bitten, you can end up getting flatlined out of nowhere if you don't seek medical attention.
Right.
And if the paralysis hits you while you're swimming, use your imagination. Basically, you can hold this octopus for 3 seconds and be a was in half an hour. Which means this woman Eurostep dying in one of the worst ways possible. Anything that tries that hard to be seen is probably more toxic than future. That goes for animals and people. This is what happens.
Now, I do like that there was that little tag, right? That little, like, hey, don't send this person harassment, right? Which I wholeheartedly agree with, right? As much as I want to say that, like prank culture, right, on social media, or certain influencers getting away with certain things that they definitely shouldn't, such as showing something in a forest that is definitely 99.9% sure against terms of service to ever show on YouTube, right? As much as I'll bring stuff like that up, right? Like, I'm never for harassing individuals. I'm never for absolutely just wanting to bully them, anything like that, right? And as much as I can say that there's a problem with, going on, say, TikTok, going on YouTube Shorts, going on any social media platform and trying to do the most egregious things to get attention, like, I do want to stress that that is a professional way of handling that, not to send hate, harassment, anything like that towards these individuals. This is done in a very professional way, and I actually love Casual Geographic for this, because this outlines a very serious issue, a very serious thing, because oftentimes people don't even know these things, right? It's why people at Casual Geographic exist, to signal boost things like this. So as much as there's a problem on social media, and that's a whole macro conversation in itself, and some people may be doing this purposely, some people may be doing this inadvertently, don't ever harass someone, don't ever bully someone like that. Just signal boost that it's like a dumb idea, right? That kind of like this, right? Hey, don't do this. This is why you don't do this. Exactly as he's done.
When one of the deadliest animals in the world gets a taste for humans. So back in 1898, the British started building a railroad bridge over the Savo River in Kenya, and they employed several mostly Indian workers over an 8-mile area. But what they didn't realize was they had accidentally wandered right into the territory of one of the top predators on the planet. Because over the next 9 months, 2 maneless male lions would stalk the workers, and when they would return to the campsite after a long day, the lions would sneak in and literally drag the workers out and maul them into a statistic and eat them. And at first, only 1 lion at a time would enter the campsite. But eventually, the 2 male lions started catching bodies together as a team. The crew tried to break this kill streak by putting up a thorn fence. Told them a motivated Simba can jump 11 feet in the air, so the lions easily cleared it. In only 3 months, 29 workers had been put in an ashtray by the hungry lions, to the point where the other workers started to panic and leave the construction site. Wow. So the head officials responded by bringing in hunters to evict the lions from the area, and you know where it goes from here. Cowie's looking down at him. He knows how this movie ends. Late one night, the lions allegedly broke into the hunter's cabin, where they mauled one hunter, dragged him outside, and that was the night his name got taken off the census. Eventually, the 2 lions were shot and put out of commission, and it took 9 rifle shots to drop the second one. Eventually, the railroad workers finished the bridge, but it cost over 130 men and 2 lions to do it. And the number of men lost was an estimate, because apparently lions don't leave a lot of their victims behind. And with all the bodies the lions caught, the workers might have built the track, but the lions ran the train.
Wait for it.
I mean, that's kind of interesting, right? That's kind of interesting to think about how there's an escalation, right? Kind of like, oh, well, we'll just do one at a time, 1 line at a time enters the camp, and then there's nothing stopping them. So there's that escalation in behavior of Gratz, well, both of us are in here now, and we're going to put up this thorn fence, and well, clearly they're motivated because they're just clearing this thorn patch, right? It's very interesting to think about in terms of like escalation, animal behavior. That is definitely like wild to think about. That's wild to think about how many things just happened. Like, wow, that is yeah. Big game is actually built different.
I can explain.
Nice.
Once upon a time, I downloaded TikTok as a joke, and now I explain stuff like this for a living. Ain't that some So when a lot of baby birds are still in the nest, instead of deucing all over the place, instead they'll dump into a white mucus membrane called a fecal sac. It's basically a built-in diaper for baby birds. And just like in the video,
how do we even get to that point evolutionarily? Like, that's wild to think about. Like, what genetically mutated, and through however many generations, however many hundreds, if not thousands, how did we get to that point? Like what caused that? That is interesting.
Normally, as soon as a chick is fed, it'll release a sack for the parent to deal with. Because being a parent literally means dealing with all kinds of
Yeah.
If the chick can't produce a sack on its own, then the mother will poke and prod around its cloaca to stimulate it into dropping its pamper pack.
Nice.
And the reason they do this is because 1, keeping all that nastiness in the sack keeps the nest clean.
Right.
And number 2, the cleaner the nest is, the less likely it is that a predator finds it.
Right.
Now the reason the mother eats it is because baby birds can't digest food completely, so they end up leaving a lot of nutrients in their poop. Since nature loves to recycle, oftentimes the parent, usually the mother, will eat the sack so the nutrients at least don't go to waste. The more you pay attention, the more you realize birds are just really f***ing weird like that.
Yeah.
Normally by the time the chicks are ready to fly, they don't need a fecal sack anymore because their systems can handle all the food they normally eat. If I have to know this, so do you.
Birds are weird. Birds consistently confound me. Like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, logically, we go through the process of like, well, why is this a thing? Like, what purpose does it serve? Yeah, to keep the nest clean. That's from a cleanliness standpoint, disease reduction standpoint, or disease mitigation, right? That comes into a not attracting predator standpoint. Like, the reasoning makes sense, but good, how far up that evolutionary tree do you have to go to find that mutation to figure out like, okay, well, this was what birds at the time were, and then this ended up happening, and then this was obviously, quote unquote survival of the fittest. This is the adaptation that allowed it to overcome, and thus this is now like dominant for at least that species. It's so wild. I love science. Science is weird. Animals weird. Damn nature, you scary.
Is that normal? No.
Amazing.
What is that?
So sharks have this reboot feature where they go into a trance-like state and can't move at all. It's called tonic immobility, and it usually lasts for about 60 seconds, but it can go on for up to 15 minutes when left alone. You can also
Is that the RuneScape theme? I think it's an OSRS. People call it OSRS. I just call it RuneScape 2 because that's when I was actually playing the game. That's a RuneScape 2 theme, right?
trigger it yourself by rubbing a shark's snout near its eyes. And once the shark snaps out of it, it goes back to whatever it was doing like nothing ever happened. We don't know for sure why they do this, but most scientists believe it has something to do with mating. It also could be because sharks use electroreception to figure out where they and other animals around them are. It's like an already installed GPS. So flipping a shark upside down probably just disorients them, and tonic immobility stops them from moving and thrashing around until they can readjust themselves. Also, this can and has been used against them. Once off the coast of California, a female orca held a great white shark upside down for 15 minutes. Since the shark was paralyzed and couldn't escape, it ended up suffocating to death.
Wow.
Which is probably why a waterproof Oreo can legitimately traumatize a shark for an entire year. Oh, seriously, sharks will avoid—
Dude, orcas are savage. Like, we want to call dolphins jerks, but like orcas are savage. What are they called? Wolves of the sea by some? That's not inaccurate from everything I've heard. Haven't they also semi-recently? Haven't they also been known to like bite yachts? Like they've been going after yachts. Oh, dude, that's funny. There's a whole commentary about that. Like, oh my god.
Avoid an area for a whole trip around the sun if they run into an orca once out of fear being factory reset by them.
Angry cougar follows man for nearly 6 minutes.
I hate the TikTok spooky sound, dude. Yeah, I actually remember seeing this one. I remember seeing this one on TikTok. God, it's so weird. Like at one part, you're going to be super like hyper aware, hyper vigilant at this. But the best thing that you can do is to kind of get loud. Don't turn your back at it. Like specifically for this type of animal, right?
So this hiker actually did the right thing and saved his own life. With ambush hunters like wildcats, you never want to turn away from them because then you might activate their predator response and then they'll just hit you from they'll attack from behind. You also never want to run because then you'll just trigger them into chasing you. And at up to 45 miles per hour, you're not going to get very far. It's like hitting snooze on death. Also, you never want to crouch down and be in a position lower than the cougar. Mountain lions don't recognize humans standing on 2 feet as prey, but if you squat or bend down, the walking flex can confuse you for a 4-legged prey animal, and if it does, it's credits. In general, you never want to crouch down in mountain lion country, even if you don't think there's one around. Because just because you don't see him, doesn't mean he don't see you.
Right.
So to not get turned into a story on CNN, you want to stand tall and speak in a loud, firm voice. It really doesn't matter what you say. Cougars don't understand English, but they do understand volume, and if you speak loud enough, you can actually intimidate them. And like the man in the video, you're going to want to do this while backing away slowly. You don't want to turn your back, and you don't want to go too fast, because if you trip and fall and get turned into a hashtag, you're going to feel really stupid in the afterlife.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to a reverse intimidation thing, right? I mean, looking at this, looking at the deer, right? The deer is keeping it right in front of it. The deer is keeping eye contact. I don't know if eye contact would activate that predator response or not. It's not turning around. It's not moving. And it's not, fleeing, right? It's just it's keeping up that intimidation game. It's seeing the intimidation tactics, seeing it coming, the cougar come towards it, and it's effectively playing the Uno reverse card of like, no, stop it, right? Like that is I can't imagine being in that situation. That's rough. Like your heart's going to be racing, your adrenaline's going to be pumping, like your fight or flight is kicked in at that point. I mean, that's, yeah. Like, so it could go wrong. But I mean, that is one of those, you have to maintain a level head, you have to remain calm, and you have to know what you're dealing with, right? Like with bears, right? There's the whole, like, if it's black, what is it? If it's a black bear, you can run, but if it's a brown bear, you can't. But that's like, I don't know if it's necessarily a misnomer, but it's one of those things where, like, people be like, I don't necessarily care what bear it is, like, because different animals have different temperaments, and even then, different subsections of animals can have different temperaments as well. So yes, it could be a black bear. What if that black bear is more aggressive than usual? What happens if the environmental factors in its area cause it to, even if you make yourself as small as possible and try to make yourself uninteresting, it goes forward still, right? Like, you just don't know. Like, there's a lot of variables in that situation.
Go too fast, because if you trip and fall and get turned into a hashtag, you're gonna feel really stupid in the afterlife. Also, cougars are actually afraid of people and normally won't attack you unless they feel cornered. In fact, the cougar in this video doesn't want to attack the hiker, and if I had to guess, the hiker accidentally got too close to the cougar's cubs. Cougars will hide their cubs in brush and bushes, so it's basically the mother's way of escorting you out. And if a cougar does charge, 90% of the time it's just a bluff to intimidate you. 10% say goodbye. But you can respond by throwing rocks and sticks, not at the cougar, but at the ground in front of it as a warning shot. That's how you survive a cougar.
I wonder if you hit it with a rock, I wonder if that will actually aggravate it further. That's probably why, right? Like, if you hit it in the face with the rock, it's probably going to be angry. You might even trigger its fight or flight response, right? Throwing it around it seems to be the better call, because it's clearly intimidated by noise, right? So if you take a rock and you throw the rock next to it, right, it's going to be a loud noise. It's going to be something that, is fast in its vision, now is next to it, right? So you're definitely playing a psychological game with it.
Or at least the cat. If a cougar presses you here, I got no tips for you.
Nah.
But she might.
Nice. Oh my god. I absolutely love Casual Geographic. I love watching his content, love watching his stuff, and it's been really cool that people have been really interested in wanting more reactions of this. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Definitely you should go ahead and check out Casual Geographic. Go ahead, give him a subscribe. Go ahead and like that video. And let me know what your favorite section of today's video was. Let me know if you knew something about one of these animals that wasn't presented. Let me know if you have any advice in dealing with animals like bears or cougars, right? And definitely go check them out. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.